on the last. Oh my gosh.
Hi.
There you go. Don't push button.
Hi, everybody. I'm sorry. I'm not there. I'm having a chemo infusion in Chicago, and I just wanted to explain why I wasn't there because I really wish that I was.
But you are.
Well, you are
I
here.
mean, Mindy just said, but you are there. Okay.
You are.
So do you mind if I just sit in on the meeting?
Sure. You can talk whenever you want.
Okay.
Chemo.
It's just good to see your face.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. I can't, you know what I'm doing? I'm doing everything with my left hand.
Move your leg.
Oh, and I have acupuncture right now. I discovered it when I started chemo, and it's fine and it helps, but I'm doing everything with my left hand and I can't do anything with my left hand. I just discovered that I feel helpless. I can't push the right button. So Mindy had to enter how to get into this website, and I'll be quiet now because you're having a meeting.
No, don't be quiet. We were just starting.
Empathize. Like surgery a month ago, and I'm finally getting some use back in my right hand.
Oh, takes a while for it to adjust, huh?
I think we're still in chapter 6, and I think we were on line 19 concerning treasures,
Mm-hmm.
because Mary, I muted you just because there's a little bit of background noise, but if you want to talk, just wave your hand and I'll unmute you, okay? Oh. All right.
All right. Well,
Yes.
I'm surprised is Barb out of town? She's usually here.
She was taking a trip too, but I don't know when she was gonna go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I can read either from the Message or I can read from the New American Bible, which is the Catholic Bible.
Here she is.
There's Barb.
Okay, no, Mary, we lost her for a second.
Okay, so we're on chapter 19. I'll read from the Message.
First station.
Okay.
The heading is A Life of God Worship. Don't hoard treasure down here where it gets eaten by moths and corroded by rust, or worse, stolen by burglars. Stockpile treasure in heaven where it's safe from moth and rust and burglars. It's obvious, isn't it? The place where your treasure is the place you will most want to be and being.
That's all John did, though, you know?
If you open your eyes wide in wonder and belief, your body fills up with light. If you live squinty-eyed in greed and distrust, your body is a musty cellar. If you pull the blinds on your windows, what a dark life you will have. You can't worship two gods at once. Loving one God, you'll end up hating the other. Adoration of one feeds contempt of the other. You can't worship God and money both. If you decide for God, living a life of God worship, it follows that you don't fuss about what's on the table at mealtimes or whether the clothes in your closet are in fashion. There is far more to your life than the food you put in your stomach, more to your outer appearance than the clothes you hang on your body. Look at the birds, free and unfettered, not tied down to a job description, careless in the care of God. And you count far more to him than birds. Has anyone, by fussing in front of the mirror, ever gotten taller by so much as an inch? All this time and money wasted on fashion, do you think it makes that much difference? Instead of looking at the fashions, walk out into the fields and look at the wildflowers. They never primp or shop, but have you ever seen color and design quite like it? The 10 best dressed men and women in the country look shabby alongside them. If God gives such attention to the appearance of wildflowers, most of which are never even seen, don't you think he'll attend to you, take pride in you, do his best for you? What I'm trying to do here is to get you to relax, to not be so preoccupied with getting, so you can respond to God's giving. People who don't know God and the way he works fuss over these things, but you know both God and how he works. Steep your life in God reality, God initiative, God provisions. Don't worry about missing out. You'll find all your everyday human concerns will be met. Give your entire attention to what God is doing right now, and don't get worked up about what may or may not happen tomorrow. God will help you deal with whatever hard things come up when the time comes.
That's beautiful. Thank you. I love that. I love the way the message
Do too.
kind of
It's a,
rephrases things. There were a couple, like I said last week, we had like some of the top 10. I always feel like there's a few phrases in here that you see on pillows and signs.
Right,
That you cannot serve God and wealth comes up a lot.
right,
The lilies of the field and the birds of the air.
right.
That's actually the theme up in the nursery. If anyone's seen it up there this year, there's like a picture of Jesus that Brenda painted, and he has
All
all the
right.
kids are birds, and then there's like this is printed out on
That's
the wall.
amazing.
Cool.
Yeah, go ahead. Oh, was someone saying something?
No, I
So-
just said cool. I thought it sounded cool.
Yeah, each of the kids has a bird, and they're up in Jesus's branch hands.
Yes.
We put leaves up there because Brenda thought he looked like Freddy Krueger. And then the last line, do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will bring worries of its own. Today's trouble is enough for today. That's one that I say to myself a lot. I've had printed out and put on my wall many, many times. Today's problems are sufficient unto. Because it's very easy to get in the future. But
very difficult when you associate in your social life with people who are paranoid. You know, and how do you say something without being rude to
Mm.
them about, don't worry about that. That's tomorrow. That's next week.
Yeah.
Or that's their thing to worry about. You just take care of now.
yeah,
It's hard.
it's hard to stay right in the
It's hard to
present.
stay neutral and not judge
And
Well,
not judge.
and not judge.
But these are aspirational goals.
Yeah,
you have to be, I think, admire people though that can just let go and give their whole being to God and not worry about tomorrow, especially if you are not alone in your life. If you have children and family, you do, you just do. And, you must, people that have that much trust and faith in God, you have to really admire those people,
Yeah.
So I know this, I mean, we've been taught this all our lives to, not worry so much about the concrete, things in your life, but
Yeah.
it's, it's hard to always say whatever you want, God,
That's a lot of trust.
Well,
Yeah.
can you guys hear me?
Yes,
Okay, I was just gonna say that, I feel like I'm learning a lot of lessons with this cancer thing. And one of the things that is, I don't know. God must have given me the ability to do this because I didn't used to do this, to stay in the present moment. And the more I think about it, the more, it's so much easier to trust God if you say, okay, I'm not going to worry about the future stuff because it's not here. If you have children, reasonably, you have to plan, but it's like we tend then to live a forward instead of right now, and that has just helped me so much. I don't mean just with the cancer. I mean, it's a real gift for my life, and I'm doing really well with the cancer. And, if I have more time, I hope that I can still stay because it's calmer. And anyway, that's all I wanted to say. But that Message Bible, I like the translation of that. Anyway, okay, that's what I wanted to say.
Thank you, Mary. David, it looked like maybe you were starting to say something, or was that wishful thinking?
I was just thinking about being anxious and worrying and causes fear. And I think that's one of the greatest problems we're facing right now, probably always has been, but that's what causes us to exclude others and be concerned only about ourselves when we're fearing about where our resources are going to come from. And then we get self-centered and absorbed with what we think we need, and then we tend to exclude others. And yeah, I just think this is such good practical advice to realize that God's not a God of scarcity. God's a God of abundance. And it's not like there's just a pie that's only so big and we've got to get our piece. And, so make sure that we get ours. And if that leaves other people short, oh, well. And I don't think God's abundance and God's provision is that way. He provides for all of us, just like he provides for the flowers and things like that. So I think that this is really good practical advice that's really hard to remember and keep in mind at all times. I'm glad Mary's at a place right now where she's learning that lesson, but sometimes I struggle with this. I begin to look at not just possessions, but I have concerns and worries about what's going to happen tomorrow. And so I get concerned, I get frustrated or angry with people that are looking at things in other ways or selfishly, it seems to me. And I think this is really good practical advice for me to keep in mind right now.
I do this all the time. I have a list in my head of things that I need to worry about.
Right. No.
And my husband's constantly saying, charity doesn't all happen at once. It doesn't all happen at once. And it's really, this is when I can do this, which is for very short periods of time, usually at during crisis points in my life, but that's when I feel better, when I can do it. It's just hard.
Well, and I think that comparing us to other living things, but things that don't actually think, flowers and the birds, I think it's pointing out that when we let anxiety overtake us about what we have and what we don't have, and we make wrong-headed decisions, and our priorities are in the wrong place.
Yeah.
I was thinking one of the things that intrigues me recently is I get a lot of these on Facebook, or just people who are doing these mini houses, these really small minimalists, and it's almost like a small trailer or whatever, and they and they only have room for what necessities that they have to have. They don't have room for all these extra stuff. And I just remember my sister, a couple years ago, they were in, well, maybe last summer, they were out at the cottage up in Quebec, and she and her partner were there, and they were getting ready to go back into their trailer and go back west for the winter. And my sister says, "Oh, I bet you're going to miss your cottage." And she says, "No, I love living in the trailer. I love living the minimalist because there's too crowded. This cottage, well, this cottage has all his stuff from his marriage, and then and then Lucinda has taken some of her things and taken them up there. So it's like really crowded. And she says, no, it's too much stuff here for me to take care of. She says, I just rather put the few clothing we need, the few things we need in the drawers. And she's very, very organized when it comes to living in that small space. And they live in that for like 6-8 months. They're only at the cottage for May or June through September or October, and then they have to get back in their trailer because the snows come in Quebec a lot earlier than they do down here, and their cottage is not winterized. So anyway, but I just was thinking about this, and then how many people just live with the bare necessities, and I have just so much. I have so many things, and I was like, I don't need all this stuff, and I keep slowly trying to get rid of the things, but it's hard because you think, oh, well, maybe Chris could use it later, or, whatever. It's really hard to,
Well, that,
to
that's,
let go. Go ahead.
but I was just gonna say, that's kind of the whole, reason for people that are hoarders, and their whole identity is wrapped up in their stuff. And, I think this is what this is saying. Don't let your identity become what's not important.
We have to get rid of the what if world that we live
Yeah,
in.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
What
that's a
if?
great way to
I
say
might
it.
need this someday. It might
What
be,
if?
yeah, what if I need this?
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
you are
This is-
right.
This is a central message of most major religions, is that desire, fear of not having, and desire wishing to acquire more. That's really what what puts us on a wrong path. In Buddhism, for example, the desire is believed as the greatest evil, that when you can get rid of all desire, then you achieve something like nirvana or something where you can contentment. And I think this is just good practical advice that's goes across most religions. The fact that we make our own prisons when we become attached to our belongings and worried about trying to provide for every eventuality. Yeah. I think that's even found in the Lord's Prayer, where we're talking about, we pray for our daily needs and the daily needs for those around us. But then the results aren't entirely up to us, and they're certainly not entirely up to us at the expense of others. Yeah, so.
And the idea that, we're praying for whatever God wants, thy will be done.
Mhm.
Not, I have a shopping list for you, God, and can you arrange these 8 things for me, please? But it's whatever your will is. Let me know what that is, and
Let me be content with it.
let me be content, because God
You know
cares for
what-
you as much or more than the birds, and the birds are okay. Although I did work for a bird biologist for a while, and there's plenty of birds starved to death. I'm sorry. But that's part of it all
Don't birds
too.
work all day long to feed themselves,
Yeah.
all day long? It
Okay,
doesn't
but
stop.
Yeah.
There's
This
no
is-
urgency for it.
are the birds
This is-
starving? Because
No,
God
I'm
is,
just going to go ahead, please.
I was just gonna say, are the birds starving to death because God is not giving them what they need, or because we put our finger in
Oh,
to their environment,
No.
so,
animals have always starved to death.
well, that's true.
Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
just
that's
how
part of the
nature
animal
works.
chain, I
Population
guess.
control.
Yeah, that's just how it all works. But
Charity, what did you learn from the birds?
um, wow, so many things. I did it for 3 years. I just followed birds around.
Oh.
And we would tag them and then see like how their nests were successful. Like, I don't know, lots of things, Mary. It's a hard question.
Yeah.
Tree swallows have no fidelity.
Oh.
The first clutch of tree swallows, there's lots of dads.
Oh,
But if the mated dad is a good dad, the second batch will be his.
Wow.
I don't think that's a good lesson for people, but I
What
feel
an
like, yeah, birds are they're very interesting, but yeah, and they're pragmatic. You know, you gotta make things work. But yeah, life is hard for birds and plants and people. We're not out of that. But they're not worried about it, you know? I don't think. They're out living their day every day that they have, because tomorrow's not promised, right? I say that all the time. There's nowhere in the Bible where he's like, everything's gonna be okay tomorrow. But
So Dave, what
We
were
have
you
to
gonna
be-
say? I interrupted you.
No, that's fine. I was just gonna say this is a very practical explication of the Lord's Prayer, I think, where he talks about Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done. And this is a very practical and way in which God's will for the kingdom, you know, and that this world is part of that kingdom, and the outworking of what God's will is for us and for the world as a whole, that we, you know, we not obsess about personal things. And you know, sometimes when you talk about the will of God, it's tough to determine it, you know, what he wants you to have for breakfast. But I think we look at God's will more in terms of general principles, and this is a good working out of that particular thing.
was there anything else? Oh, go ahead. Go
One of the
ahead.
things I was gonna mention, and this is a little book that I love, and every so often I pick it up and read it. It's called The Practice of the Presence of God, and it's by Brother Lawrence. I
Oh,
don't know.
yes,
I don't know, Mary, if you've ever read this.
I have earlier.
Yeah, and I just thought it just gives you an idea of how he just takes he'll be working in the kitchen, and he's just talking with God right there, right then. And just practicing the presence of God in every menial task, or when he's out in the garden, or wherever he's doing. And this is a 17th century monk, French monk, who wrote this little, it's a conversation between him and God. And it's just kind of it's just kind of an interesting book about how you practice the presence of God. And it's in everything that you're doing, even, you know, you're sewing, or your whatever your little project you're doing. But I just thought, I just had it sitting here, and had been looking at it. And
Mary, have your name and your birthday,
I was
please.
thinking about the breathing
Very
underwater.
sweet.
If anyone ever read that. Richard Rohr and his 12-step program. So like Alcoholics Anonymous, Al-Anon, Narcotics Anonymous, and they have these 12 steps, and a lot of it's very spiritual. But there's a slogan among like 12-step programs where they say like one day at a time, and or one moment at a time. Like, I only need to do this for right now. And I have a friend who's in one of those programs, and she told me the other day that she'd heard this thing that said, if you're worried about the future and the future seems godless, like you've worked yourself like I do, I've listened to the news, and that in the future is just godless. She's like, it's because God's in the present.
Yeah, wow.
And I thought that was really interesting. Like, if the
Yeah.
future feels godless, that's because God's with you right now in the present. Like, he's not in that future you've created in your mind. So come back to this moment, take a deep breath. Like, God is with you here now. Be here now. Mary, I'm sorry, the background noise was a little hard, but please unmute yourself again, or I can unmute you if you want. But should we talk about this some more? We can move on into chapter 7.
Yeah, let's move on.
You want to move on? How about, wow, there's so many good ones.
Can I just interject something? There was a time in my life when I put a sign in the kitchen that said, when you're doing the dishes, do the dishes. Anyway, yeah.
the window.
Yeah, I have one in my kitchen that says "Be here now."
Oh, yeah, that's.
I
a
know.
very-
We talked about that. Be here now.
Yes.
Where else?
That, yeah, me too.
Yeah, I do turn the news off a lot though. It's easy to get caught up.
It is.
Um,
It's not anything you can do
And the
anything
news
about.
anymore is so repetitious that it's easy to get upset because you keep hearing the same thing over and over again. It's like,
be here now.
yeah.
That's all
I
we can
think
do,
that's what the Ukrainians do.
right?
They're,
Huh.
and this morning about it's something, I don't know, things are going on over there. And yet they're maintaining what they do every day
Right.
of every year.
And they're
If it's a
hopeful
celebration.
and they're
They've got-
determined.
And they've been living in this situation for a long time. And so generations have
Mhm.
learned to do what those behind them have done.
Yeah.
I just think it's amazing that that can be happening and they're still going about their business. They'd be hiding, afraid to step out, you know,
Yeah.
Or running away.
or running away, yes, in order to maintain my sanity. But I hate to keep bringing it up, but I do think about that.
Oh, yeah.
I really do. And someone is complaining that they don't have something or they're afraid or whatever. I say, you know, we're very fortunate that we live where we live, even though things look kind of weird sometimes.
Yeah,
Just keep going.
but we have today in this
That's
moment.
correct.
Right now, we're all okay today, right here. It's a hard place to stay.
Well, and we also have to balance that with understanding that we need to be not self-obsessed and you know, living out of fear, but on the other hand, we need to be planning and working towards maintaining the welfare of others. So, you know, it's just, you can't just go all day singing one day at a time, you know. We do need to plan. So we just need to be not self-obsessed with this. We need to plan ways in which we can feed others and help, you know, people in misery and things like that. It's a balance that needs to be maintained. It's just, I think it's the self-obsession that draws us away, where our trust is not in God or the goodness of God or the abundance of God, but our trust is in what we can see, what we can do to take care of ourselves and obsess about that we need to be worried primarily about ourselves, because if we're not, then we're not going to be cared for.
Yeah, it's a lot of trust, right? God will do it. If I could get a volunteer to read, let's say maybe through 12, and then we get the golden rule. So chapter 12.
I'll go ahead and read it.
Thank you, Leslie.
Yeah, through 12. I'm reading out of the NRSV. Do not judge so that you may not be judged. For with the judgment you make, you will be judged, and the measure you give will be the measure you get. Why do you see the speck in your neighbor's eye, but do not notice the log in your own eye? Or how can you say to your neighbors, let me take the speck out of your eye, while the log is in your eye? You hypocrite, first take the log out of your own eye, and then you will see clearly to take the speck out of your neighbor's eye.
Amen.
Do not give what is holy to dogs, and do not throw your pearls before swine, or they will trample them underfoot and turn and maul you. Ask, and it will be given you. Search, and you will find. Knock, and the door will be opened for you. For everyone who asks receives, and everyone who searches finds. And for everyone who knocks, the door will be opened. Is there anyone among you who, if your child asks for bread, will give a stone? Or if the child asks for a fish, will give a snake? If you then, who are evil, know how to give good gifts to your children, how much more will your Father in heaven give good things to those who ask him? In everything, do to others as you would have them do to you. For this is the law and the prophets.
Thank you. This is just so packed. This whole
Yes.
sermon. and it's just, I feel like I've spent days thinking about almost every line in here.
Well, the beginning of it is almost the repetition of when he stopped the other Jews from stoning the fallen woman, you know, by saying, well, if you're sinless, then go
Yes.
ahead,
Ask first.
you know.
Yeah.
So, I mean, maybe this was, I don't know when this happened in the course of Jesus' life, if it was before or after that incident on the street, but it's, again, he's saying, you know, don't be so self-righteous that you think you're so great.
Yeah. I fall into this though all the time where I read this and I'm like, oh, those people should read this.
I know.
Yeah. I,
Perfect, yeah.
I agree with you. This, you know, a lot of times I'll be judging the people that have talked to me against, you know, against different things, or, you know, the woke situation where everybody is, you know, who's woke is not right. And I think about it and I think, okay, I'm judging that person who's saying that too, you know, so I have to, sometimes I just have to keep my mouth shut and love on these people no matter what, you know, be their friends, do, you know, and not not fight back and say, okay, you know, there's, because I don't, a lot of times you don't get anywhere. You're not going to change anything other than, you know, loving that other person.
Yeah, the only person's spirituality I can control is mine.
That's
Like I'm the one who needs to read this probably every day, honestly, because I have a log in my eye that I don't know about.
mhm.
I mean, I must. And so that's what I need to worry about is my own log. But it's, I mean, I just feel like this is so timeless and so powerful. I just love this whole thing. I'm sorry, Carol, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, you know, I think it's just like, you're right, all we can do is control ourselves, but it is kind of disheartening when you see other people that say they believe in this, but they don't practice it.
Yeah.
And, you know, what do you say? You just, I guess you just have to bite your tongue, or, you know, say, God will forgive you eventually, or
Just
I
keep-
don't know.
Keep leading by example.
Exactly. I guess that's all you can do. But I think, I mean, this is targeted to everybody. So, you know, being human, we'll read it and think, oh yeah, that's that person.
Yeah.
It's easier for us to see it in others than in ourselves.
I think since I come from the tradition I come from the Nazarene Church, which is a holiness denomination, and one of their big practices is that you need to live a holy life, that God enables you to a holy life. And so part of the church is that they have very strict standards that they ask their members to subscribe to, or things that to stay away from in order to be part of the organization. And I think the problem is with that is a lot of times when we judge, we're not just assigning blame, but we're assigning motivation. We're assuming why people do the things they do, and giving people that do things that we don't agree with believing they have bad motivations or bad thoughts, and yet we defend our own actions, and even when, you know, our own selfish desires. I just think that it's so important to realize that we're not in a position to judge other people's motivations. We're not God. We're not the Holy Spirit. It's not our job to convict and try to get people to change. Like Evie has already been mentioned, all we can do is live a positive witness and try to do our best to be honest about ourselves and our own motivations. And then this comes out of a context, of course, where Jesus was dealing with a religion that was based on rigorously following the law, a list of regulations that they were supposed to either do or not do. And so that the religious leaders of that time were very much involved in trying to make sure other people were living up to what they considered their standard of holiness. And this is approached several different ways about prayer and things like that, where, assigning motivation, But so I think that, yeah, this is something we all struggle with. We struggle with it daily, of course, because we're very quick to defend ourselves, and it's very difficult, impossible to see inside another person's heart and understand where they are and why they're doing what they're doing.
It reminds me of a time where it was when I told you about my 30-day challenge to pray for somebody. I was talking to somebody in my old church about it, and I said, I think they're just irredeemable. And they said, well, aren't you fortunate that you're not a redeemer? You're not the redeemer. It doesn't matter whether you can redeem them, because Charity, that's Jesus. Jesus is the redeemer. Like, can you get yourself out of the way of yourself for a minute? And I think about that a lot. Like, if I'm just like, this person, whatever they're doing is irredeemable. I'm not the redeemer. Like, all I have to do, live the best life I can, probably read this more often, and let God work. But
I think
Go ahead,
I
I'm
was
sorry.
just, no, I was just thinking, how does verse 6 fit into this? I was trying to think how, don't give what is holy to dogs, and don't throw your pearls before swine. These are both unclean animals. And so, they're culturally, but I think what's behind this statement, after I think about it, is we're not even supposed to judge people who we're sure their motives aren't right. We're not supposed to bother to try to change other people when they don't have even the right motivations. That's not our function. We can't change other people. That's not what we're supposed to be about. We're supposed to be about maintaining our own understanding, as you were sharing, that it's our own motivations, our own problems. That's where we need to be concentrating, because we can't effectively change other people.
I've always been confused by this. That's a really good way to look at it. I feel like, this gets sometimes confused. People who are like, who are missional, like who are going out. I hear this one, and I hear the dust off your cloak. And yeah, I'm not sure. I like the way you read that, though.
It just came to me. I've thought about this a long time. Just what does this mean? Why is this here? What does the context have to say in it? I think maybe there is at least some truth to that we're not supposed to waste our time trying to run other people's lives, or trying to convince people who don't agree with us. Our mission is not to do that. Our mission is to live a certain kind of life, and by our example, maybe people can change and see something different. But it's not our job to try there and to go there and change them.
Because they'll turn and maul you.
Yeah.
Like, maybe you're trying so hard to change other people, you're the one who's going to end up taking the focus off what you need to do for your own life to try to stay. I don't know.
I think this is a good application right now to our world, our country. What a lot of well, I shouldn't name people, but a lot of people can seem to want to run other people's lives by making their personal morality the laws of the nation, and making people compelling them to live a kind of moral life that, if we look at the gospel at all, they're not able to live it if they're not, if God isn't helping them. And yet still we want to compel people to live the way we think what they should live. And I think this is maybe a caution against that.
That makes a lot more sense in this context, because I've always thought this one was a little bit confusing.
My favorite verse,
Okay. Oh, okay.
6. Yeah. Go ahead, Leslie. I'm sorry.
I said one of my favorite verses here is, in everything do to others as you would have them do to you. For this is the law and the prophets. It's, what do we do to others? We love the others. That's what we're supposed to do. And because we would want them to love us. And so we need to be the person loving,
And
loving
when we,
out. Yeah.
and when
Go
we
ahead.
mess up, we don't want we make mistakes. When we mess up, we don't want people saying, well, he did that because he's a bad person, because he meant to do it. No, we want people to look at us in the most sympathetic way possible and understand, hey, I blew it. I made a mistake. I'm human. And maybe that's the way we need to look at others just the same way, assign them the best motives, and try to, you know.
I sometimes feel like this is related to not like worrying about all of your stuff. Because I think sometimes when you have so much stuff, it's almost hard to say, if I was a refugee or I had something horrible happen to me, what would I want someone to do for me? Because you get so insulated from that immediacy of need that I think it sort of hampers, I'll say me, I'll just put on me. It can hamper me spiritually.
Right.
Because I get so removed in my comfortable house from someone who has nothing. But if you're closer to that, you can say, oh, I know exactly what I'd want someone to do for me if I suddenly found myself with nothing. And I think it impacts my empathy as I get comfortable materially. So this
Right. Well, I know, just as a stupid, concrete example, when I was in California helping my husband, there were many storms at the time I was there, and the electricity went out 3 times. And our electricity, the first time was out for a day and a half. And I was thinking, man, I'm just so spoiled because I cannot wait for this electricity to come back on. It's just like, and you get so set in your ways and spoiled and not realize. But I think, what this is saying is you want to treat people well. The only person you can be responsible for in the end is yourself. And, you want to treat other people like you'd want, it's really challenging us to be very introspective about who we are as a person.
And it's, I think it's also preventing us from trying to other people, because as soon as you can other someone and say they're not like me, that they're somehow subhuman, you don't have to have even basic regard for them.
Well,
and
I
we
think-
tend to do that, those people.
In a lot
right?
of ways too, I think it makes a person, you think, oh, I'm so much better than that, and am I really? That's, I think, what this is saying. Are you really? Maybe you don't think that exact thing, but because you're thinking about the political environment today, and you feel like, I can't talk to that person because they won't listen. Well, am I gonna listen what they have to say? What they have to say, I'm gonna think that's ridiculous, so.
Just ask them if they want more turkey, put it on their plate, give them
I think as Diane was pointing out, the whole Sermon on the Mount starts with Jesus pointing out that there's a real bias to the bottom of society. And the fact that what a real bias that for both for his concern and also for the understanding that, like Diane was pointing out, the people in Ukraine, they're in the middle of a war. They don't have electricity half the time, or they don't have this, they don't have that. It really focuses your attention on what's really, really important. And if if you can look at things from those perspectives, and you realize a lot of things that we spend most of our time worrying and concerned about are things that aren't absolutely essential, but they're just things that because of our privilege, we're used to. And so, I think this is a good lesson for me, that, just to keep in mind that Jesus had a bias to the bottom, and it's a good way of looking at things.
and such a radical way of looking at things.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's
So
not a
far.
kingdom of this. Yeah. It's not this worldly for sure. Yeah.
And it wasn't 2,000 years ago, and
Nope.
there's no, well, it is 11:30. I'm not in any big hurry. We could talk more, or we could say we're gonna start at verse 13 next week.
I will not be here next week.
Okay,
Greg will be back and I will be gone.
Oh,
So, I don't,
you guys are gonna switch off.
well,
You can exchange
My-
notes.
yeah. My sister-in-law, who was married to my brother that died last fall, they have a cottage up in Michigan, in Ludington. And she wants to go open it up for the season, but she said, I can't do this by myself
Okay.
the first time.
Yeah.
Will you go with me? And I said, of course.
Oh,
So,
that's nice.
love Ludington.
I know, I wouldn't turn
Beautiful
down a
place.
even if she felt comfortable opening it up herself, I'd go, I'll go with you. I
Yeah.
love going up there.
Oh, beautiful. Hopefully you
Yeah.
have beautiful weather.
Well, she said, don't
Stop
expect it to
recording.
be too warm up there.